Welcome to the #1 source for information, news, and opinion on your Columbus Blue Jackets. This is CBJin30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. You can also find the audio version on the CBJ Radio SoundCloud page, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Google Play Music, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Now here's your host, Bob McElligott.
Welcome to a Monday Mailbag edition of CBJin30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Now, I've got to tell you, we're in, what is this, week seven, 8, I don't know. Again, I've said this many times, and I'm not going to change my opinion on this. I have pretty much lost all track of time. It's 7 or 8 weeks into this thing. The Blue Jackets haven't been on the ice since they played in Vancouver back in what turns out to be really the early part of March right now. They were supposed to play on March 12th. That was supposed to be the last game. They never got that game played at Nationwide Arena against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So, here we are going into, it's the middle of May, for crying out loud. It's basically the middle of May. So this has gone on for quite some time, and, it hasn't changed that much. Now, we've talked about some things in the past couple of weeks about the return of the season potentially, how it would take place, where it would take place, all of that stuff. And there's some more news about that, which I'll tell you about in just a few minutes here. But again, it's kind of been like marking time here in these last couple of weeks, waiting for something to break, waiting for some real news. And we're still waiting for some real news. So, it's getting a little bit thin. I'm not going to lie to you. The Monday mailbag questions have gotten thin the past couple of weeks, and that's okay. I get it. I understand, because we're all waiting for something to break. So I do have something for you, and it's very good. So I will get to that in just a few minutes. But you know what I have to do? I've got to tell you about the fine folks over at Telhio Credit Union. At Telhio Credit Union, they want you to be a part of their family. That's really what they are, because they're taking care of their customers. They're making sure that their customers are getting what they should get in the way of service. They're making sure that they have their money in the right place. They are making sure that when you go to sleep at night, you're not worried about your financial institution. It's the furthest thing from your mind, for goodness sakes. That's what they're all about at Telhio Credit Union. You can find out all about them. Why would you join a credit union? Well, the answer to that question and many, many more are right there on their website at telhio.org. So go online, take a look at it, and see what works for you. Look at the accounts that they have, the different services they have, the different accounts that you can open, and see what might work for you better than what you have right now. Telhio Credit Union is open to everyone in Central and Southwestern Ohio, and they are federally insured by NCUA. All right, let's get to the nuts and bolts of it here. As I said, it's been a lot of little bits of news. It's been kind of a drip, drip, drip here over the course of the past couple of weeks, but nothing solid. There's no time frame as far as, okay, teams are going to be able to practice in small groups starting on this day. Players have to be back in their host cities by this day, because there's still so many unanswered questions with all of that. When will the players from Europe be able to come back? How will they be able to come back? Is there going to be a quarantine period for them when they do get back? You would think that there would be. As it stands right now, you would think that there would be. The Canadian border is still closed. When you talk about guys going back and forth to get back into Canada, how's that going to work? Again, we don't know a lot of the answers to a lot of the questions. The draft was talked about last week. They had a meeting of the Board of Governors last Monday afternoon about the draft, wanting to have it in June. It seems like that's going to happen, but again, the league hasn't made up its mind. There are some general managers that don't want that to happen, or they would prefer to let the season play itself out in some way, shape, or form, if they can do that. There are others that basically have said it's a foregone conclusion that we're probably going to have the draft before there's any chance of finishing the season. So we've got to get prepared for that. So all of that stuff. And if you missed the conversation that I had with Bruce Garriock last Friday, go back and listen to that, because we really broke down that draft in great detail. Bruce follows the Ottawa Senators. He is right there in the capital city of Canada. He's in touch with a lot of people. We talked about the possibility of that draft, and went through all the different scenarios of it. And the prior week, I had talked with Mike Russo from The Athletic in Minnesota, And Mike and I talked about the hub city ideas because Mike was part of a group of writers that wrote about 4 hub cities, whether it's 2, whether it's 4, whatever. There's a good chance Columbus could be one of those cities. And the chances of that, I think, would improve every day because as I sit here with you today, we're looking at a week where there are more businesses slated to open here in Ohio. As a matter of fact, the hair salons and barbershops are supposed to open once again. Now, I don't know how that's going to work. I really don't know all the particulars of it, the ins and outs of, I used to just go to the barbershop, walk in there, very old school, old style, right? You walk in, there's a number of chairs around the room, not a big room, small room, 1, 2, at the most 3 people cutting hair at one time. And you'd go in there. It's close to my house, little neighborhood place. I've been going there since I lived here. You go in, and you know, it's not that everybody knows everybody, but I know the stylist there. So you go in, and they talk to you, and sometimes I run into some people that I know that I've met from basically the world of youth baseball here in the summertime, and I'll talk to them. There are other plenty of friendly people that are in there, and they're just talking, having conversation. It's one of the more fun places to go, quite frankly. It really is, because there's always conversation. You never know what the conversation is going to be about. It's one of my favorite places to go if people are talking about sports, and especially if they're talking about the Blue Jackets and they have no idea who I am and what I do. That's one of my most fun things, because I like to hear those conversations sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes I sit there and I get a little upset at those conversations, not just in that place, but any place. But for the most part, it's just fun to listen and hear what people really think when they don't know that there's somebody in the know that's listening, right? So and you get a gauge on things. You get a gauge on what people feel, whether it's a hardcore fan or whether it's somebody that is a novice in the sport and is a casual observer, just likes to go once in a while. They read things, they see things, they hear things, and then they talk about things. So it's a fun place to go. And I don't know how it's all going to change. I don't know if they're going to make me sit in the parking lot in my car until I get a text saying, okay, you can come on in, and you got to have a mask on and all this. And don't even get me going on that, because it'll be a dividing point between me and some of you. So I don't even want to get into it. But anyway, I don't know what's going to happen, but things are starting to open up once again. And by the way, I haven't decided. Maybe I won't even go, for goodness sakes. I mean, maybe I won't go. Maybe, I mean, this is way longer than I normally have my hair, for sure. This has never existed ever for any long period of time. Maybe I'll just keep myself like Tom Hanks in Castaway until we finally go back to work. I was thinking about this until we actually go back to do games. Not so much this, and I'm talking about keeping the beard. I forget that now I'm doing some of the show on video. There is the big audio portion of it, which is what the whole thing got built on. So I should address that. Been thinking about keeping the beard until we actually go back to work. The hair, I've been meaning, I've been waiting to get it cut, but I don't know. Maybe I should just go back, as I said, the Castaway kind of look, and just let it all go until we go back to work. But I don't know. I don't know if I can make it all the way on that one. But anyway, I'm getting way off the subject here. I've got to get back to what I started to talk about, and that is the reopening of Ohio, reopening of the United States. Slowly but surely, it is happening. What's going on in Canada? What are they going to be able to reopen? When are they going to reopen it? All that stuff. But it's moving in that direction. So if it's hub cities, where are those cities going to be? Again, the local governments are going to have a lot to say about where those cities are going to be if that's the route that they go. But there's been this talk about all these different scenarios. There's the 31 team scenario to come back. Everybody comes back. There's this real desire, or there seems to have been this real desire to play regular season games, try to get as many of those in as possible. And there are some contractual reasons for that. When I talked to Mike Russo a couple of weeks ago, he went through the fact that there are teams that have deals with their regional sports networks where they promise them X amount of games. If they don't get that amount of games, if they don't get to that number, then maybe there has to be some reimbursement there, and then there's a loss of money. So it's always been talked about coming back and trying to finish the regular season in some way, shape, or form, whether that's 82 games or not 82 games. That never seemed to be the issue. It was, are you going to play regular season games or aren't you? And that's what has been talked about for the longest time. There were also other scenarios just to come back and play the Stanley Cup playoffs. And then if you do play the Stanley Cup playoffs, are they going to be the regular 16 teams as per the norm, or would the playoffs be expanded this year? So those have been the big questions about all of this. And yesterday in Newsday out of New York, uh, there was a story, and it was interesting because as all of this stuff is being talked about, and all these different ways of going about things. Andrew Gross wrote this story yesterday, where he's basically saying, well, I'll tell you exactly what he's saying in this quote from the story. Again, this is from Newsday on Sunday. Says a source told Newsday on Saturday that the return to play scenarios have been narrowed to two, and that the timing of when games can resume, if they do, likely will determine which format is used. The first scenario includes 24 teams, and under this plan, the top four teams would play for playoff seeding, and the bottom teams would have postseason play-in games. The second plan would include only 16 teams heading straight into the playoffs with no regular season games that are salvaged. It's not clear how the standings for the returning teams in either scenario would be determined or where the games would be played. So there is another twist for you, if you will, another complete twist. So just coming back with 24 teams. Look, let's be honest, to come back with 31 teams, unless you're going to have some kind of a NCAA March Madness style tournament where it's a one and done type thing, really, do the Detroit Red Wings need to come back and play another game? Do the Ottawa Senators need to come back and play another game? Do the Los Angeles Kings, I know they were hot going into the pause, do they need to come back and play another game? I really don't think that they do. I don't think that they do. And then you get into okay, if it's the 24 teams, what direction are you going to go? Because, and this is interesting, because the hub city idea that has been talked about was an entire division goes to this hub city, right? So if you're going to do that, are you going to take the top 12 teams in each conference, or are you going to take the top 6 teams in each division? Because you can go either way. But depending on the way you go, depends upon who gets into the playoffs. The Buffalo Sabres, if you take 6 in the Atlantic, then they're in. If you don't, then they're out. Simple as that. That's just one example. So there's implications there. Or do you do the standings and the seedings, because and keep it the way it was, because last year the Blue Jackets were technically playing out of the Atlantic Division anyway, after they were a wild card team, and they crossed over and played in the Atlantic Division. They took on Tampa, knocked off Tampa, then they played Boston. So they were operating as an Atlantic Division team last year for the most part in the playoffs, even though they're a Metropolitan Division team. So you could just keep it like that, and you could cross somebody over and put them in with the other division. So you can do it either way. So that'll be another question as to how it goes. But what has been a prevailing thought here is that it's not fair this year, of all years, with the tightness of the standings. And the Blue Jackets are a great example of why the playoffs should be expanded this year. I don't think there's any question about it. They are the number one prime example as to why they should be expanded. Because as it stands, at the pause, the Blue Jackets in the standings were in a playoff position. However, they had played more games than some of the teams that are behind them in the standings. So what does that mean? Well, that means if you go by percentage points, then they would be bumped out of the playoffs, and a team that played less games, by virtue of playing less games, would be in the playoffs. So, that's a big example of why this would be the year to open it up and go for a play-in series. And maybe when they're talking about the top teams playing for positioning, then they're still playing games. Because one of the things that seemed to be a problem with a lot of the upper echelon teams, if you will, is that if you come back and start the playoffs and you have these teams that are going to play these best of 3 play-in series, well, they're going to play. And they'll play at least 2 games, and you'll be sitting there playing 0. And now all of a sudden, the first game that you play is going to be something that is deciding a playoff series or pointing it in a direction. You've played 0 games. This team has played 2 games, 2 real playoff games. They're going to be more ready than you are, right? So maybe if you're playing for positioning and seeding or whatever it is, then they can satisfy those teams getting some games that actually count, not just exhibition games that don't count just to get the legs moving and whatever cliche you want to use, go ahead. So maybe that's a way around that. I don't know. I'm not sure. And is this going to happen? I don't know. And we were talking about the hub cities, which has been that, again, a big topic of conversation. But the more you read and the more you listen and the more you watch, the more there's a player here or a player there that's saying, the thought of going somewhere and being quarantined in a hotel for 2 to 3 months doesn't really appeal to me. I have a family. I don't want to do that. And it's very easy from the outside to say, well, you just spent the past 8 weeks at home and you wouldn't have been at home. So, it's kind of a payback thing here. Okay, you've had the time. Now you go. But see, that's not really fair either, because in the playoffs, if you're in the playoffs, you still have the ability to go, no, I don't know, home to your own bed, be around your kids and your wife and all that stuff. So I can see why there would be pushback from some of the players. Now, then there's the other implications. There's the how it affects the salary cap in the future if you don't play the games. If you can't figure out a way to get some games in, how does it affect the salary cap? How does it affect the escrow? How does it affect rosters for the 2020-2021 season? Okay, those are just a couple of the questions right there. So this is very interesting. If they've got it down to either 24 or 16, it makes sense. It does. It makes sense to me. Like I said, there's some teams that I don't think they need to come back. And I don't think that they think that they need to come back either. If you asked them honestly, maybe not on the record, but if you asked them honestly, maybe they'd say, I'm good. Well, Drew Doughty did, right? Kings defenseman. He said that. He said that weeks ago. Just how about I just get ready for next year and I'll be okay with that. So how's it all shake out? I don't know. I don't have any idea how it's going to shake out, but that's the tidbit of the weekend. All right. So again, drip, 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 just waiting for the spigot to fully open. And that's because we're waiting for the economy to start to open. We're waiting for the rules coming from all the states and again from the federal government about players coming back. And again, how are they getting back? What's the quarantine rules when they get back? Yada, 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 all that stuff. So that's what we continue to wait for. Now, I will go to the mailbag here because I got this email sent to me. Bobby Mac, BOBBYMAC at bluejackets.com. And here it is. It's from my good friend Waldo Pepper out in Indianapolis. And Waldo says this: Hey, Bob, I just listened to your Friday podcast, and I am absolutely appalled by the concept of the National Hockey League or any sports league going forward without radio and television broadcasters being on location. I am old enough to remember remote broadcasts of Olympic Games, and even today, some Formula One auto races are broadcast remotely. They leave a listener cold, and only the most hardcore fan could stick with it long term. You team broadcasters are valuable assets for maintaining a fan base, and I hope that you, your teams, and the fans push back hard if they attempt to keep you out of the stadium booths. Other non-team media I can see keeping them away. They can watch a TV and participate in Zoom news conferences without losing very much. But the loss of the authentic feel of a broadcast done live and on location would be a travesty. I don't know if you're free to express your opinion openly, but I would be interested in your thoughts on the subject. Thanks and God bless. Well, Waldo, thank you. And look, I'm just going to tell you this. If that's the way the rules come down, that's the way it's going to be. Would I be thrilled about that? No, I hate it. I hate that idea. And I'm sure any broadcaster would hate that idea. If you say, even with zero fans, If you say, would you rather sit in a room, watch a TV screen, and call a game you're not at? Or would you rather be in the building calling a game as it goes on? Every one of us is choosing to be at that game, unless they're afraid of getting sick and they don't want to go, whatever. Take that out of the whole equation for this conversation. Just if you were given the choice, you're always going to where the game is. There's another factor to it too. I mean, hockey is one of those games, and maybe it's not the only one, I'm sure, but there's so much going on everywhere. And when you're watching it on a screen, you're basically getting the puck. You're watching the puck. Even me, my job is to watch the puck. I've got to follow the puck and say where it is and who has it and all of that stuff. But when you're there and you see the full scope of the thing, you see things that are happening behind the play. You see, you might see a guy go off the ice limping to the bench that is not picked up on camera because the camera's following the puck. So you're coming out of your defensive zone. The guy maybe just blocked a shot, and all of a sudden his team gets the puck and they start going back the other way. And the camera's following the puck, of course. And this guy that blocked the shot is hobbling over to the bench. And you can't see it because it's not on the screen. But if you're there, you can see it. So again, you miss out on a lot of stuff. So as I said, if those are the rules and if that's the way it is deemed it's going to be just in order to get back into a building, then that's the way it's going to be. Doesn't matter if I like it, doesn't matter if you like it, doesn't matter who likes it. They won't care. And again, to get back and find a way to finish is I don't, again, what can I say? Is me standing up and saying that's not fair is probably wouldn't change a doggone thing. So we'll get through it. We'll adjust and we'll do what we have to do for now. If that's the case, okay. Do I still think, especially if you go to a remote site, would you still be better off to have somebody embedded there to actually report on your team and be around your guys? And again, that person or people, they'll have to be like everybody else. Though, when I say embedded, they're going to have to be tested. They're going to have to, go through the same routines. You're going to have to make sure that you're healthy all the way through. So, you lose. There's a lot of things you can lose, but what you would gain is playing the games, right? So I hope I broke that all down for you. We all want to be there. It's our job. We love it. It's one of the greatest perks of our job is to be able to be live and in person for every one of those games. If it's not going to work out that way to come back and finish this thing this summer, then we'll have to make adjustments to it. It's as simple as that. So there you go. That's what I've got for you today. Again, it's not a lot. And again, I understand you're not having a lot for me as we go along here. And as we do get into this another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I'm probably going to be upfront and honest with you. I'm going to look at this on a week-to-week basis and see if there's any actual real news going on. Like I found a tidbit for you today. But if things are slowing down until they decide if there's going to be a draft or whatever, then maybe we start just doing the Friday shows and back off the mailbag for a little bit until there's something to sink your teeth into. But again, I'm not telling you right now that's the way it's going to be. I'm telling you that I am going to assess this situation as the week goes on and make a decision from there. So I just want to be completely upfront with you. I appreciate you as always. You guys are great. You're great. And again, we're into 7 weeks of not having a game, not have barely a player transaction. Those were a couple of weeks ago. It's a big old nothing burger right now as we wait. So I get it. I understand. And I hope you do too. I'll be glad to sit here and do this for you as long as it is benefiting all of us. Because, there is an off season. Normally there is an off season. Normally this would be it. So, well, hopefully not. Hopefully you'd still be playing in the playoffs. But, if we get to that point where it's better to treat it like an off season until things get going again, we'll do that. But that's something that actually you and I will make that decision together. It won't be just a me thing, and it won't be just a you thing. So just to be completely candid, as I always am with you, I appreciate you so much. And I just want you to know that and let you know what my school of thought is as we move along here. All right, this week on the Blue Jackets drop-in, what do we have for you? It's going to be Pierre-Luc Dubois, Blue Jackets centerman, is going to join Jody Shelley and I for the Blue Jackets drop-in this week. You can check that out. Also, I will have a guest on Friday for another CBJin30. I do not know who that is going to be yet. Haven't made that. See, there's another thing. And if you're wondering about that, and again, I'll be honest and upfront with you, I'm kind of playing it by ear is one way to put it, but it's when there's news. If there's news of the week, then I want to go out and try to get that person that is either creating the news or involved in the news or writing the story or whatever the case may be. So on Friday there will be another CBJin30 coming up for you as well. Before I go here today, I want to remind you once again about Cam Atkinson and the virtual 5K that he has got coming up June 4th to the 7th. You've got 3 days to complete this thing. If you register by the end of May, you're going to get a T-shirt, you're going to get a medal, all of that. So you want to make sure that you do that by the end of May. FNF 5K. FNF5K.com is where you go to register for that. I saw a tweet yesterday that they've already surpassed $25,000 raised, and they're looking for more. They want to get a couple more $1,000 by Wednesday of this week. So get on there, FNF5K.com. Again, to get the perks, you've got to be in by the end of May. So I hope that you will do that and raise some money for a great cause. Cam, if you missed the drop-in that he did with Jody and I last week, he talks about where the money's going. It's going to a great machine over at Ohio Health, machine that'll be able to test the people on the front lines and get a result, a positive or negative coronavirus test result in mere minutes. So this money is going to a very good cause. Hope you will get in and join with Cam Atkinson in his virtual 5K. That'll do it for today's Monday Mailbag edition of CBJin30, presented by Telhio Credit Union. Until next time, I'm Bob McElligott saying so long.